Hey, everybody, it's Jeff, the Alexa guy, and I'm really excited to introduce you to my special guest today, Amy Summers of Pitch Publicity. Amy was an early client of mine. She's been creating her flash briefing, which is called The Pitch, for well over a year, and she's seen some really amazing opportunities come her way as a result of her flash briefing, which we'll talk about in just a bit. To let you know, Amy started Pitch Publicity in 2003, and her approach has always been focused on crafting newsworthy pitches that complement her clients' goals and that satisfy the media needs for a compelling story. It's kind of hard to do both of those things sometimes. She strategized publicity campaigns, and she secured live interviews for media with her clients at the deepest and only underwater scientific laboratory on the planet, and at the highest point on the planet during a Mount Everest summit. That is so cool. Her publicity campaigns have resulted in billions of media impressions for influential medical doctors, scientists, authors, entrepreneurs, you name it. She's worked with corporations and nonprofit organizations worldwide. She's also a regular professional speaker at conferences, and she's a rabid University of Florida fan. Plus, this is very interesting for this audience. She's been nominated for Best Alexa Flash Briefing at the Project Voice Awards in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which are happening in January. Amy, thank you so much for joining, and congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you, Jeff, and thanks for the warm introduction.
You bet. You and I think, actually met while doing work on a campaign for a mutual client a couple of years ago.
Yes, I feel like we've known each other forever, actually.
Yeah, you were truly an early client of mine. I remember I was talking to you about a flash briefing for that client, and you saw the value for your business right away.
Yeah, it was so interesting to me. So I thought I would experiment on myself, and here we are.
So how did you get started in the flash briefing? What did you start thinking about as far as what you were going to talk about, and where did you get your ideas for episodes?
Well, I really had talked to our mutual client who is a serial entrepreneur about a year ago or so because I was interested in starting a new company. And Anthony, who's a mutual client of ours, has launched a whole bunch of companies. So I was running some ideas by him. And when I was telling him how I wanted to really disrupt the book publishing industry with a new platform that would be a technology platform that would just bypass the traditional books and buying books at stores and the environmental waste involved with that, he suggested that I talk to you. So that's how we ended up on a phone call. And I remember specifically asking you last fall, Jeff, what's the next thing? Because I don't want to do an app. I feel like the apps are just oversaturated. And you just very pointedly told me, Amy, I'm not doing apps anymore. I'm only doing flash briefings. And I thought to myself, what is that? So it was so interesting. I think that when you told me what you're doing for your other clients, I thought, this could be the platform that I want to do my new business idea on. But just because I wasn't that familiar with it and didn't even have a voice assistant in my house anyway, I thought, maybe I should just experiment on myself first and see what happens. One of the things that you said to me that really stuck out was when you were explaining these flash briefings to me, you referred to them as flash briefings and skills. And, in my whole career, which is, 20 years now, I've trained so many people and mentored so many people how to do public relations and how to be a publicist and how to pitch the media. And I've always told them that this is a very important skill, not only in your career, but in life. And that even if you don't stay a publicist or you decide you want to get out of public relations, that you will carry this pitching skill with you wherever you go. And so I thought, well, what a neat thing to experiment on with my own company that I've had for, nearly 20 years. And let's see what happens if I put on the flash briefing, basically my internal pitch guide that I've been training all these people that have worked for me for years and how I do my business basically. What if I put that out there to actually help other people, learn how to present and pitch in all areas and aspects of their life?
Yeah, that really was fascinating to me too, because, doing phone calls, following up, writing letters, emails, all of that seems to be really getting lost in doing it in a polite way and in a way to build a relationship. And the idea that you could take your flash briefings and basically teach the people who are coming to your company how to do that, something they may not have ever heard about before, because I'm from an earlier generation, so I understand that stuff, but they're not necessarily getting it now.
Yeah, in a very unique way, I've always one-on-one mentored everybody that works for me, even down to my interns that are still in college. So it's very unusual to have that type of a relationship with your boss. And so I've actually never put any of this information in an employee manual. I've always had it on my to-do list and just never got around to it, thinking I'll have a training guide for this one day. And it's been dangerously in my head this whole time, Jeff. So the idea of doing the flash briefing was really cool to me because I could take, pieces of all the tools that I give my team every day and that I use myself, and all that advice I give them on the phone. And I could break that into flash briefings. And now it's great because if I have somebody that works for me and they really need help on something that I'm not available, I can just refer them to like episode 289 or whatever, and they can listen to me give them the tip on how to present something or pitch something. And so now I do have that employee manual, but it's all audio.
That is just fascinating. Now, how many episodes total have you created now?
So I am over 450 now.
That's
And
fantastic.
I took all your advice. I have done it every single day since we got started, even the weekends, and haven't missed a beat yet. So
Yeah, that's one of the important things that I think everyone needs to understand, myself included, because I am not as good as you are, and I need to be at just keeping it going to make sure that you're there every day. If your audience is expecting you to be there every day, you need to be there. And you and Pete Blank and a few other of my clients are just doing really large numbers now, basically because you just kept going day after day. You never missed one, and you just continually gave this kind of value to the listener.
yeah, it's definitely a lot of time commitment and work. I will say that it's definitely been that. But I do find that people, just like what you predicted, is that people get used to hearing your voice in their ear every day. And so when you drop off, or if it's repeated 2 or 3 times, in a row, you just lose them because they don't think that you're around anymore.
Yeah, exactly. If you can't be bothered to be there, why should they be bothered to listen?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you've actually become an expert among many people as a result of this. I mean, people look at you a little differently, don't they?
Well, yeah, it's really interesting because I've spent my career in public relations and publicity. So I just took, again, myself as an experiment on the technology platform. And I've been using the same skills I used to promote my own clients, but I've been promoting my flash briefing, which is a little awkward for me because I'm not used to being in the spotlight. I'm always behind, backstage, helping other people promote their stuff. So I would say that's probably the most awkward part for me, is like really putting myself out there. But I'm using the same strategy that I use with clients to promote them, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to see if you could actually be a thought leader expert without having to go through the publishing industry, which is a very long process to produce a book. A lot of clients come to me and they write a book because they want to gain a platform or be seen as an expert or get booked on speaking gigs. And so my business idea was, could we just bypass that? If we want the same result, and neither writing a book or doing flash briefings are going to make you a lot of money. Neither one does that. They both take time, but we just get rid of the middleman, which is the publishing industry, which controls a lot of what that author is allowed to do and not do, and just get it out quicker and see if that would work. So I experimented with myself because, I'm not really a known name, although I'm well known in my own career and with my own circle of clients and contacts. But I am just a regular person in that sense. And I thought if I could do it, then I would have the template to show somebody else how to do it if they wanted to propel themselves to an expert level.
Yeah, that's very cool. And you mentioned the you're not going to get rich off of this. You do have some strong feelings about monetization with Flash Briefings. Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure. It's been interesting since I've gotten involved in this world of flash briefings that everyone seems really quick to want to try to figure out how to make a lot of money off of it. And I think that that's, it's pretty typical in a lot of areas of business. People get into something, they're like, okay, how am I going to get rich quick? And it, what people tend to forget is that a lot of successful business people and entrepreneurs, just because they have an idea and they start it, they don't make a ton of money right off the bat. Now, they may become successful much later. And there's a whole story behind that on how that happened. But it's usually not just running into something and it happens really fast. So with anything that's new, you have to establish an audience, you have to establish relationships. And it's impossible to establish relationships and a following with people when you're immediately hitting them up to do a bunch of things like buy stuff from you, or even asking them constantly to follow you and to do this. You have to just, first of all, get to know them. And with the flash briefings, it's challenging, right? Because there's not really a two-way communication going on. You're putting this out there and you really don't know all the time who's listening to it. Every once in a while I'll have somebody email me or message me on social media. I had a woman message me the other night and said, I didn't even know who she was. And she said, this is the best thing. I listen to it every morning. And, I'm so proud of you. And she's like giving me all these tips. And I'm like, I don't even know who she is. This is nuts. But you have to develop that relationship. Yeah. The easiest example I can give to people, and I've said this before, is if you go out on a date with somebody for the first date and you sit down at dinner and you say, I want to marry you, that person is going to run the other way. Like you can't sell that right then and there. You have to develop a relationship. And I feel like that's what people are doing on flash briefings when they immediately say, hey, buy this from me. Why would I? don't even trust you yet. So there is a difference between marketing and public relations. And the biggest difference is that PR is not a direct sales vehicle. Now it can be, but the main purpose is that with public relations, just like the words say, we're going to relate to our public and we're going to get to know them first. And we're going to do good things and we're going to tell the people about it, but we're not going to hit them up immediately to buy stuff.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And I've actually never seen anything that can make you seem like an expert as much as talking to people every single day, which is what you get to do with this. Now, do you batch record your episodes or do you just do them every day?
I do batch them. I'm not as far ahead as I would love to be. I am about roughly a week ahead usually. It gets tricky if I travel or my schedule gets too filled because I have only found a couple of places that really work really well for sound. And one of them is my closet in my very small apartment in New York, which was your suggestion. So if I'm traveling, I have to batch a bunch of them in advance because I don't know what type of situation I'm going to get in at a hotel. It might be, one of these modern hotels where there's no carpet anywhere and there's echoes all over the place. So, yeah. And then I'm always afraid too that what if I get sick or lose my voice or something tragic happens and I have an emergency or I end up in the hospital. These are the types of things that worry me. So I'm trying to get ahead, but at the same time, I don't want to get too far ahead too, because it's really a constant evolving, journey of like what's going on in my business life too, and even my personal life sometimes. So I don't want to get too far ahead with mine. Unlike some people, I'm not delivering the news of the day, and I never say what the data is in my flash briefing, which is great. Yeah. And I do that on purpose because I have a different way I want to purpose my flash briefings later. So I always knew that, and I didn't want to date them in a way. But I do like to stay relevant.
Yeah, and that I have a few clients who can just sit down and knock out 30 of them in 2 hours, but I would say the majority.
Amazing. I don't know how they do that, but I will say that mine are also not off the cuff because I'm writing every single one of my episodes. I write it first, and I really thoughtfully think through it. And if you ever hear mine, you'll probably tell that, because there's no way that I could just run through that without writing it out. And the reason why I'm writing it, because when I started this, as I told you, I wanted to do a replacement on a book. So it's the idea that I'm writing a book about pitching and how to be really good at pitching. So I wanted to write each one of the episodes down. And so I do have documentation of every single one. And I have launched another way that people can go read my written word too, because some people learn better that way too. So I think that you could probably batch 30 in a day when you are doing them off the cuff. But I'm not. I'm thoughtfully thinking through and writing them out, just like you would hear, read in a book.
Yeah, and that's really something that helps a lot. If you write them out, then when you post your episode, you can put the transcript up there. That helps in your long tail SEO, so that when Google crawls through there, they actually have words to grab a hold of so that you can get indexed a little better. So yeah, writing them out is fantastic. I have one new client. She knows her business so well and has given so many speeches on it that I said, you can batch record about 30 at a time. And I swear 3 hours later, she had 30 for me. And I just went, I can't believe you could do that. It was just amazing. Now, another thing about you that is so amazing is the number of reviews that you have. And I know we've had lots of problems with reviews, and we can cover some of those, but how have you gotten so many reviews?
Well, I remember when I started with you, you said that I had to ask somebody every day for a review, which was easy for the first couple of weeks. And then I realized I don't know anybody else. So, it's something that that I actively work on. And I actually have my team here at Pitch Publicity help me work on weekly, again, as if I was a client. So we really branch out, and whenever I speak, especially on college campuses, sometimes I'll run a contest for them and ask them before I speak at their school to listen to the pitch, to write a review, and then I'll bring in Alexa and have a prize for somebody, who randomly wins because they gave a review. But I like to do that too, because before I even speak to them, they've listened to a bunch of my episodes. So they know a little bit about what I'm going to talk about, and they've been familiar with the technology versus me going in and talking to a group and having no idea what it is that I'm talking about and having no reality on it. So that's really helped. I've done it that way. And just word of mouth, just asking other people that have reviewed it to ask maybe 10 people that they know to check it out and review it. But the reviews are tough, I think, because I don't even review things on Amazon. I remember you told me you review everything on Amazon, but I've never really done that before. Now I'm doing it, because now I'm like, I realize how important that they are. So on products I buy, I'll start writing reviews and everything, but I used to never even think about doing that. And I think that there is some of the stuff we've run into is, of course, people they don't necessarily want to put their name and information out there, even if it's a positive review. There's a little bit of hesitancy to do that. So it's hard. And then there's some people that don't mind doing it at all, but they would have never done it if you didn't ask them. So I always say ask, because if you don't, and you're just sitting back and you're waiting to hopefully somebody recognizes you and they're going to say something about it, but I approach all of my reviews that way. Even on LinkedIn, you'll notice I have a ton of reviews and recommendations. But, when I do a good job for a client, I just ask them, hey, this really helps me if you can write a review. So I think I'm going to have a flash briefing about this, but you should always ask.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. And when you mention leaving the reviews yourself, one of the things I found is that the wall between me and the people that I admire has gotten so much thinner, because I can go on a book page for someone who I really want to know, and I can record a quick 2-minute video review of myself talking about that video. I would say probably 8 out of 10 times, I get a note back from the author, the person that I wanted to connect with, saying, thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. Mm-hmm. So it's a great way to be able to reach other people. Speaking of big time people. You were on a panel recently. You've gotten a lot of speaking engagements. And I remember you called me and you said, I don't know if I'm right for this panel because there were like people from Facebook on there and stuff. I don't remember the exact makeup of the panel, but I remember you calling and saying, it's a little intimidating.
Yeah, so it was the Voice Summit. So the Voice Summit last summer, I was invited to, well, I submitted to speak at, and they accepted me and they put me on two panels. And not really knowing what I was walking into, having done this flash briefing and really feeling confident about that, I was starting to look at who was actually attending this conference, and it was a lot of tech people, and I'm not a tech person. So that's why I called you, because that was the intimidating part. I'm like, are they going to care about what I say? Because they might just be, thinking about wanting to hear about development and all of this back end stuff that I know nothing about. But ironically, I remember you said to me that, no, Amy, they're going to want to hear from you because you're different. There's not a lot of people in your field that is very active right now in voice technology. And you were right. So I got there and monopolized the panel because people kept asking me questions. They were really fascinated to have a business owner on there and seeing how I was using it with my team and how I'm using it with clients. That was fascinating to them because a lot of them are building, skills and different things for businesses. So having my feedback just firsthand of what that, how I was using it was interesting to them. So no, it was really good. And I think that the voice technology space needs more communications professionals for sure. It's a little bit lacking in that. There's a lot of great ideas and innovation, but the information's not really getting out. And I think it needs to, if we're going to get to a certain level as far as awareness goes.
Yep, agree. So I hope that what I've gotten across today is that you are a big expert in voice, despite the fact that, you like to pretend that you're not, I think, but you definitely are. You're a big voice in voice. And so I want to ask you, where do you see voice going over the next couple of years? You can talk about it both from a publicity standpoint, a communication standpoint, and just in general.
I think it's really exciting because what voice reminds me of is back when I first started my career in publicity, radio, just regular terrestrial radio, was like the best place to go if you really wanted to get your points across. We called it the Wild Wild West, actually. Because it wasn't controlled by anything. Like you had real people on there. They were delivering all this information that you couldn't get anywhere else, in a newspaper or on TV. It was just it was like a new frontier as far as like, that's where people went. If they really wanted to sell like a new idea or product or something, they went to radio. And so what's funny is that radio as of late, we got into podcasting and satellite radio and all that happened. But this is exciting to me because I think this is going to just revitalize that whole piece of media. I think this is very exciting for radio people, and I can't wait to see more of them jump into the voice technology space. When I spoke at Voice Summit, somebody from Fox Radio came up to me and he's like, I'm so happy to hear how you're using it. Like, this is so exciting. And I think that once they kind of integrate more into this, they're the ones that are going to be really the media that people will be paying attention to the most. Again, it's going to circle back to them. So, just like in fashion, things always come back around. And I think voice is coming back around, and it's really powerful because it's hard to get your message out there, if you are kind of in a more controlled media and you can't say this and do that. And right now, voice is the wild, wild west. Anybody, even like me, can have their own flash briefing. So that's pretty amazing. It's not so controlled. And I think the work that you're doing, with a lot of radio stations and stuff that you told me about, I think once those personalities start having flash briefings and that they can be heard on, these voice assistants, that it's only going to push everything up.
Yep, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add? I'm just so grateful you've been on the show, but I I've kind of asked you questions and directed the conversation. Is there anything that I haven't covered you'd like to add?
I just think that it's an exciting time and that we always have to be learning new things. And so I remember when Facebook I first heard about Facebook, I was so resistant to getting a Facebook account. I thought to myself, I don't need to do that. The people that are working for me are doing that, but I don't have time. I don't have time to do that. And eventually I got on it because I realized that if I don't get on this thing, then I'm going to have a client ask me to do something on it and I'm not going to know how to do it. So when you first told me about voice, the first thing that went in my head when you asked if I had an Alexa was, I don't need that. Why would I need that? I don't have time for that. And now I found the opposite to be true. I'm so glad she's in my apartment because sometimes it's just me and her talking. So, it's really been great. But I would say don't resist this technology. It definitely, everything that you told me, everything I've read, everything I'm learning every day, this is going to be a very important technology and how we communicate. And you don't want to be behind. And like you've always said, if you get in early, you're going to have a huge advantage. And this is one of those opportunities where it's makes a lot of sense. And it's just the next stage, I think, of how we will be communicating. And it's an access point to get your message across.
Yeah, and that is just really important to keep in mind. I am just so happy that you're a client of mine. So grateful that for everything that you've been doing with Alexa, pushing the platform forward, pushing forward how you can communicate better on there. And I'm also very grateful that you were on the show today. So just thank you so much, Amy. And if anyone has a book, if there's a doctor out there with a book or with an entrepreneur with a book, how would they reach out to you?
They can find me at my website, pitchpublicitynyc.com, and all the ways to connect with me are right there. I even have a link on my website called Pitch, and that's where you can find all about my flash briefing. And all my social media handles are there, so they can connect with me there. And I will convert them from writing a book to doing flash briefings. So I'll send them back to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Amy. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.